slow down. Just slow down. And with him telling me that, it really helped me because I started to gather my thoughts before I tried to put them out. Because what I was doing before was I was just thinking so fast and I was trying to get everything out. And so, yes, I was stuttering. And I actually shared that story in Guyana, South America back in 2018. And it was so amazing to me that several of the students came up to me. And one guy in particular, he said, listen, I have a friend of mine. He stutters. Can you tell me how you did that? How you overcame it? Because he was literally asking for his friend.
Hmm.
And that really touched my heart that he cared enough about his friend, the way he heard this story, heard this explanation, that's possible siblings and going to talk and speak to people, that there was an aspect of our personality that I was missing. And that was the inner child, because I started to notice a pattern that there were a lot of adults that were, in fact, they were acting out of their childhood traumas. They had issues that were showing up that were seated in their childhood, but a lot of people really didn't know it. They didn't recognize it as that.
Hmm.
And so I quickly understood that people needed to heal. Several years ago, I spoke at a Focus Women's Conference here in Mobile, Alabama, and my speech was entitled Wearing the Right Mindset. At the end of that presentation, when when the time comes.
I know a possible title for your seventh book, sir.
Okay. And what's that?
Therapy.
Therapy. Okay. Well,
Well, it's pretty cool.
I'm actually working on my seventh one, in fact, which is a follow-up to this one,
Uh-huh.
to heal, and it is literally called Heal, Help Elevate and Learn, a guide to maturing your inner adult. So
Nice.
after the inner child is healed.
Welcome to the Dr. Smiley Show. And I got this. I got this. We have Cicone Prince here on the show today. I've been practicing the name for probably a good 10 hours now, Cicone. I mean, this is a lot of practice here. I bet you've never had anyone mispronounce your name.
No, it's never happened. Not in a million years.
You know, I almost wanted to change my name from Ken to Canoni just to get you back.
Yeah, that would have definitely got me. It would have threw me for a
Well,
loop.
we were having a little laugh, and I said, "We can't have any more laugh before the show. We have it during the show." So I want to tell you, I think the funniest thing I've had happen is that someone wants me on their show, and they say, "And Ken Rochon," and I'm like, "Close." So I always do a check with the person before the show, and it's okay if I say it wrong then. I just can't say it wrong live. So, and you said the sensitivity. I think it's a great way to start the show since you have a unique name. But when people take a stab at someone's name and they don't check or have the respect to ask, there's sensitivities. And I will say that my name's mispronounced so much that the sensitivity is lower because it's French, but I'm also saying you don't care.
That can also, yeah, it can come across like that as well.
So you said it's a great conversation starter. I can imagine it is. I met you at the Becoming the Better You or Best You, Becoming the Best You, and I've seen you speak. You're dynamic. I've seen you a couple times speak, and really dynamic person. Thank you for the book that you sent me. Your message is the kind of message I want on the show. So we're going to go deep in all that in the second part of the show. But first of all,
Mm.
how does someone earn a name like that?
Well, my name was given to me by my father. It's actually an Italian last name, and it was one of his army buddies' last name. Uh, and I also found out several years later that it's Madonna's real last name, but she has two C's in hers,
Hmm.
Ciccone. Mine is just Cicone. And I asked my dad, I said, okay, so well, why did you give me this guy's name? Did he take a bullet for you? Did he jump on a hand grenade? What did he do to actually earn you naming your son after him? And he said, nothing. I just like the name. I was like, really? I said, well, do you at least keep in contact with him? Can I find out who I've been named after so I can have a little history about, in fact, where it came from? But I mean, that's all I know. That my father gave it to me because it was on his army buddy's last name, and he really liked the name. So he decided to name his only son Cicone. Now he's a junior, so if he would have named me John Andrew Prince the third, of course I wouldn't have been a trade. But for whatever reason, which he has yet to really fully explain to me, he just chose that because he liked it. So there we are.
Well, it seems to have served you well, but two questions that I hope I'm not catching you off guard here. But this show is about having fun. And by the way, you're welcome to ask me any question that I don't know. But
Okay.
here's the two questions.
Hmm.
Did you ever find the guy? Did you ever try to find the guy?
I never did, and I probably need to. I know that I asked my dad about it about maybe 10 years ago. Uh, and of course, the internet wasn't as connected as it is now.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and and my dad is still alive, thank God. He'll be 80 in fact December. But I do need to see if I can find out more about this guy so I can at least see if I can find out something about the history, if he had any offsprings or anything like that. So I can. Oh, a fun fact, I did become Facebook friends with this young lady who is actually, in fact, Madonna's cousin. Her name is Angela Ciccone. That's
Mm-hmm.
the Italian pronunciation
Gotcha.
of it.
You know,
Yeah, and actually, she was real good friends with Michael Jackson. In fact, before he passed, she has several pictures and stuff of like her and him. But
that's
yeah,
pretty cool.
yeah, yeah, it is. But that's the only connection, in fact, that I've had so far surrounding my name. And yeah, I do need to find, see if I can find something about the guy, like where he was from, you've had any family members, any sons, any daughters, anyone like that, that would kind of help me get a better understanding as to the person I was named after.
And I went ahead and looked up what your name means. I should say the
Okay.
Italian version of your name. Did you do that?
I think I did it one time, but I didn't give a whole lot of weight to it, so I can't remember
It's
what it
funny you say
said.
it's funny you say I didn't put a lot of weight to it because you're going to get a kick out of this. You ready for this? All right.
Okay.
So here we go. There we go. Okay, so with two C's, it's an Italian surname that originates from the persona name Cico, which I guess is Chico, right?
Chico, yeah.
It can be interpreted as an augmentation of Chico. And then it says was chubby or fat. Now, because you lost a C, you lost the chubby and fat, I guess.
There
Isn't
you go.
that
There you go.
well, I think it's a great way to start the show because first of all, people will not mispronounce your name that heard the show.
Yeah, well, I tell people the easiest way to remember my name is to write it on a check.
And it worked for me. I'll tell you, when I sent you that check, it was really helpful. Do you know what I didn't like though? And you were not too happy with me about this, but I'd mailed it to you and I had put on the outside envelope, I'm so sorry, I forgot to put the check inside before I sealed the envelope. And that was such a sad day for me because
Yeah, yeah, but there's a grace period. I have a 364-day grace period for like gifts. So I'm still waiting.
well, in all seriousness, you it was a heartfelt gift. You gave me your book with a nice sentiment inside it, and thank you for that.
You're
So
so welcome.
uh
So welcome.
tell me where you're born, what your childhood was like, and how it fueled who you are today.
Well, I was born in Mobile, Alabama, which is on the Alabama Gulf Coast. Uh, I was born during one of the greatest years in history, 69, in the summer of 69, which at that time there were several, in fact, monumental things that actually happened that year. We had Woodstock. We also had one of the most devastating hurricanes that hit the Gulf Coast, which I was actually born after, in fact, which is Hurricane Camille.
Mhm.
And because she hit on August 12th, I was born August 14th, and we put a man on the moon. So those two things happened in 1969, along with, in fact, me being born.
Now,
I
wait a second. Do you think they played so big in getting people on the moon because you were being born? Do you think there was a
I
correlation?
think it was a celebratory thing, because they wanted to commemorate and establish the fact that this year a prince, Cicone Prince, was
Yeah.
born. But yeah, I was born and raised in Mobile. uh, and I have called, in fact, mobile home. I spent 4 years in Atlanta where I went to college. And but other than that, I have called mobile home. It's been an amazing journey and opportunity to, raise a family here, to grow up here, to learn the values of family and of community and of connectedness. But I will say that when I was in Atlanta, what I got exposed to was a different mindset, a more of a entrepreneurial, more of a civic mindset, more of a community base. It wasn't just like your little area, but it's like what can we do as a whole to help our communities around our area. Um, but yeah, I have definitely enjoyed being a Alabama native. And oftentimes people ask where you from. We say LA, and I'm like LA, Lower Alabama. That's where
Right.
we are. So yeah, I grew up on seafood. I actually worked in the fish market while I was in high school, so I know how to skin, steak, fillet, sheephead, ground mullet, white trout, red snapper, grouper, even shark. Right? So ton of skills and stuff that I picked up here.
So
Um,
that would be like a little different version of like a Forrest Gump the second. Like how many ways?
yeah, Wilson
But
Groom he actually grew up across the bay in like Baldwin County. But
isn't he
yeah,
cool? He is the
y-
coolest.
yeah.
I met him.
You did. Yeah. Well, you have. I haven't though. But yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Trust me,
Yeah.
he's a cool dude. He is a cool.
Yeah. I know he is. I know he is because he put he put Alabama on the map. So yeah.
Cool. So, tell me about. Okay, so you say you raised your family down there. How many kids you got?
I have 5 kids.
Only
Uh,
five. That's it.
five. That's five. Just five.
Did Cicone keep going?
No, no. Actually, my oldest son was born. In fact, when I was in high school, he was actually born a week before I graduated high school.
Mm-hmm.
His mother, in fact, she named him Marcellus. Uh, and actually, in fact, Marcellus Rondale. And the reason that I mention his middle name is because all of his sisters have a similar, in fact, middle name. And the only one that doesn't have a similar middle name is the youngest son. So it's Marcellus Rondale. Oldest daughter is Kristen Janelle. Middle daughter is Jessica Danielle. Youngest daughter is Taylor Noel. But our youngest son is Jonathan James Andrew Prince. And the reason that he got four names is because, well, uh, he wanted to pay homage to my father and to my wife's father. In fact, my father's name was John.
Mm-hmm.
Is John. In fact, my wife's father's name was James, and also Andrew. So my name is Cicone Cornell Andrew Prince.
Mm.
So we decided to name him Jonathan James Andrew Prince. So he's the only one that doesn't have an ELL. And if you notice, the Cornell has ELL at the end. So does Rondell. So does uh, Noel, Danielle, and Janelle. So yeah, that's how all those are tied together. But he's set apart that he has two middle names like his dad.
Well, and it saved you from having a sixth kid too, because you would have.
There you go. There you go. There you
You
go.
know, you have a great smile, and I just want to show the world that this was a wonderful day, a wonderful event, a wonderful celebration of leadership, and
Yeah.
you're in a couple books with that picture.
Yeah, well, thank you. I do appreciate it. It's always great to be around amazing people that bring out the best in you, or that challenge you to be your best. And I definitely know that being a part of becoming the best you and actually meeting you there, is where I meet amazing people like yourself. Yes, I can't help but smile. So thank you.
Well, what's interesting is I wouldn't have come up to you and given you my book until, but you remember when you spoke, I went up to you afterward. I go, man, I love,
Yes,
yeah. And that's the thing about speaking. That's the thing about going to events is you're going to have an intimate connection with people when you really know how to talk to an audience and be with an audience, and you do that
right,
well.
right.
I don't want to skip to that part yet. Tell us from the childhood to you finding your feet as far as that's where you want to be on the stage, or how you developed your leadership role.
Well, it's funny you mention that because I never really saw myself in this role at all. Because as a child, I had a stuttering problem. I really had a hard time getting my words out, getting my thoughts out. But one thing I knew is that I couldn't be silent. I couldn't just keep everything in. I had to figure out a way how to get that out. I even co-authored a book with my coach, Dr. Ruben West, where my title of my chapter was Stop Stuttering at Life. And I talked about how even with my stuttering problem, I had to acknowledge it, I had to address it, but then I had to attack it. I acknowledged I had an issue because it was obvious anytime you talked to me, I would try to get everything out.
How long were you, let's call it hardcore stuttering, to when you broke
I
free?
would say I was hardcore stuttering until I was in high school.
So quite a while.
Quite a while, right? And I actually, in middle school, I went to speech therapy class.
Hmm.
And the only problem that I had with this is that they would literally have you go to your social studies class, they will call the roll, then they would send somebody to come and get. Why can't I just go to the class? No, no, no. Everybody has to be in the classroom. They have to call the roll, check and make sure everybody's there. And then someone has to come to the door and say, yes, I'm here to get Cicone for his speech therapy class. And of course, I mean, this is middle school, and this was back in the 80s. So, this whole anti-bullying campaign and stuff, that wasn't nowhere to be found.
No, it was called pro bullying.
Exactly, pro bullying, because all of the kids are like, bye, Coney. And I mean, it was so embarrassing, but yet and still, I was willing to endure that because I knew that I wanted to get better.
Hmm.
And it wasn't until I was in high school that my uncle gave me the best advice I had ever gotten. He said, Sakona, what's really happening is your mind is on sentence three and your mouth is on sentence one. He says, all you have to do is slow down. Just slow down. And with him telling me that, it really helped me because I started to gather my thoughts before I tried to put them out. Because what I was doing before was I was just thinking so fast and I was trying to get everything out. And so, yes, I was stuttering. And, I actually shared that story in Guyana, South America, back in 2018. And it was so amazing to me that several of the students came up to me. And one guy in particular, he said, listen, I have a friend of mine. He stutters. Can you tell me how you did that? How you overcame it? But he was literally asking for his friend.
Hmm.
And that really touched my heart that he cared enough about his friend, the way he heard this story, heard this explanation, this possible solution to help him, to help his friend stop stuttering, that he wanted to literally write it down and take it to him and share it with him. That really touched my heart.
That is beautiful. I have a couple of segues here, but I was just thinking about the pro bullying period and what a joke this is. But obviously, it's because of the circumstances of which you shared it with me. Is someone's going, it's a cone, and you go, no, 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 it's a coney, and God, that must have been hell.
Well, after a while, not being able to respond in a cohesive way, your sensitivity level kind of drops, because even trying to correct somebody, it just makes it worse. So, but that also becomes fuel to, okay, I really need to get past this. I really need to figure out a way how to address this issue so that it's not an issue in the future. So,
So
yeah.
I just want to say the three things I've kind of noticed about people that have dyslexia or stuttering problems, and I do have a lot of friends that have both, and I don't know why I either track them or I think because I was bullied, and I think anybody who's different gets bullied, and so every time I move to a new area, and if you're an artist or you just communicate different or whatever, you're gonna be isolated. So I it's good to get bullied actually, because then you have some humility going out of it that I'm never going to do to someone else because I know what it feels like. That's one. Number two
Right.
is I've met stuttering people that I didn't know they ever stuttered because they're masterful with their language and their ability to communicate on stage. So they overcompensate. And I mean, James Earl Jones,
Yes.
I mean, the ultimate voice of what it is to have a voice and what it is to speak and communicate. I mean, besides Morgan Freeman, I mean, come on, James Earl Jones.
Right. Right.
But if you read, I know it's a Malcolm Gladwell book, but it's the dyslexia phenomenon is that they had to learn differently, so they thought differently, so they solved problems differently, so they became masterful chief executive officers because no one thought like them, and so they were able to outcompete. And so the proportion of CEOs that are probably stutters or dyslexics, I would say, is proportionally high in the per capita norm.
And that's true. That's true. And honestly, that would be a really interesting survey to have because a lot of individuals, especially for in fact dyslexia or even stuttering, they wouldn't want that to be like on that calling card. I was a stutterer, or I was dyslexic. But I mean, but to see and to understand the reasoning behind that and how it gives them, for lack of a better term, a tactical advantage when it comes to problem solving, I think it would be interesting to know how many successful CEOs have had those type of challenges earlier, and like you said, they've overcompensated for them.
Right. And I have a gentleman that is going to be on my show pretty soon. His name is James Moore. And
Hmm.
uh, he's got a book he's got coming out called, and I believe I'm going to be lucky enough to be publishing this book, but it's called From Stuttering to Stage.
Ooh, nice! I definitely want to get a copy of that. I
And I will,
definitely.
but I'm going to connect you with him because you guys would be champion friends. He's a Toastmaster champion.
Okay, nice, sweet.
A boom. So the gift within the gift, and also you're going to be on the authathon. For those people listening live, he's going to be sharing his book in depth on the authathon. But let's go to the book if you're ready. You ready to go to the book?
I'm ready to go to the book.
Okay. Do you have it handy by any chance?
Actually, I do. Hold on for a second.
Okay. And I wanted to first of all say, why did you do this book? There we go. And why did you do this book, and why is it important?
Ooh, well, this book here, literally, it was a culmination of what I've been doing throughout my speaking career. I started off doing personal development, which to me it's the most important development that you can do because everything else comes out of that. Because I tell people, no matter where you go, you're there. So if your thinking doesn't change, if you take that same thinking from one relationship to the next, from one job to the next, from one project to the next, from one goal to the next, from one diet to the next, it affects every aspect of your life. So you need to develop as a person. So I went for personal development, but I quickly realized that leadership development was the other side of that coin because you can't lead others until you learn how to lead yourself. But once you learn how to lead yourself, the next logical step is to help lead other people. But I realized in my travelings and going to talk and speak to people that there was an aspect of our personality that I was missing. And that was the inner child because I started to notice a pattern that there were a lot of adults that were, in fact, they were acting out of their childhood traumas. They had issues that were showing up that were seeded in their childhood, but a lot of people really didn't know it. They didn't recognize it as that.
Hmm.
And so I quickly understood that people needed to heal. Several years ago, I spoke at a Focus Women's Conference here in Mobile, Alabama, and my speech was entitled Wearing the Right Mindset. At the end of that presentation, I gave about a 2 minute exercise where I had all of the participants who were ladies, I mean, about 100 ladies in this room. I had them, I said, okay, first of all, I want you to secure your valuables. I said, because everybody ain't safe, so make sure that your phone and your purse are close by you. But then I wanted them to close their eyes and put their hand over their heart. And I wanted them to speak to the little girl within them and to tell that little girl how proud of that little girl they were for the strength she had to go through every whatever they went through for them to become the woman that they are today. But then I also said that little girl is proud of the woman that you become because you actually went through hell just to get to where you are. And after I finished that exercise, after I finished my presentation, I can't tell you how many women came up to me. Some of them with tears in their eyes.
Mhm.
And they thanked me, not only for the information I shared before, but in particular for that exercise. And that I think was the catalyst, to me writing this book. When I addressed a part, an aspect of the personality that they had forgotten, overlooked, or just pushed aside, and that's that inner child. And so, not only for women, but I know also for men. And so, the subtitle or the title of the book is Heal, Help Elevate and Learn. Subtitle is A Guide to Healing Your Inner Child. And I say it's a guide because only you know the extent of healing that you need. Only you know the level of trauma that you endured. And only you know how to navigate. So it's a guide. It's not a one size fits all, but it helps you to acknowledge, address, and attack the issues that could be holding you back. And a lot of people, honestly, they don't realize why. Why are you so upset because he didn't show up or she didn't show up? Something else seen in childhood. Why do you get so over the moon happy when somebody compliments you? Because something you didn't get in your childhood. And I'm gonna share this and then I'm stop talking for a second. But one of the quickest, one of the easiest explanations I heard about love languages is that if you can identify what you didn't get as a child, that's your love language. And I was like, wow. Some people felt abandonment. So, and there's somebody that's there that shows up for them and that checks on them. That's their love language. So this book, I've sold more copies of this book than all our other books combined because it speaks to that part of, because all of us had a childhood. If you made it to adulthood, you had a childhood. The question is there anything lingering from your childhood or anything from your childhood that's hindering you from being the best version of yourself, from living the life you truly deserve? And that's one of the things that I wanted to make sure that I raised the awareness. And I even turned the book into a podcast. And on my podcast, our slogan is, we're not here to end the conversation, we just want to start it.
Hmm.
About childhood wounds, childhood trauma, but more importantly, childhood healing. And so that's how the book came about.
The exercise I would like to help the audience, maybe they want to do it live with you for is a couple minutes so it could be done.
Sure.
Okay. Before you do that, though, I want to say I was going to make this point anyway, but you made it for me. Is this is your book that has sold more than all your other books? How many books have you done?
How many books have I done?
Published, have written? Yeah.
Okay, this is book number 6. Actually, my first book was Are You Climbing the Wrong Mountain? Uh, my second book was Knowing When to Jump. And yes, in fact, Knowing When to Jump.
Okay.
In fact, which is at the bottom, I think. Then the third book, yeah, that one. In fact, Knowing When to Jump. The third book was Shooting from the Hip, 7 Life Lessons I Learned from My Total Hip Replacement. My fourth book, which is actually, I finally put it in print, which is Are You Smart Enough to Play Dumb? A Guide for Starting and Running a Small Business. And then my fifth book was Leadership That Lasts, Passing on 10 Solid Principles to Ensuring and Enduring Legacy. And of course, my last one is Heal, Help Elevate and Learn, A Guide to Healing Your Inner Child.
I believe this is the one you gave me at the event, if I recall.
I believe that was, yes. In fact, yes, it was.
So I have to, I want to get this one. And I want to say something to you about this because this is uh, for me, this is a huge gold nugget in the show.
Okay.
And you proved it. You said, my new book, my sixth book, has outsold my first five.
Right.
You want to hear my prediction?
Yes.
Your seventh book will outsell your first six. My 60th book has outsold my first 59. I mean, no comparison. It's
Wow.
off the
Wow.
chart. Because why write another book unless it's going to be a better book? Why write a book if you don't have something better to say?
Exactly. Exactly.
So you've evolved, and authors unfortunately think this is my book. This is my book. No, that's either one your practice book or it's potentially your worst book.
That's true. That's true. It should only get better from here. It should only get better from
Well,
here.
I think the problem, and this is a deep dive that I wasn't intending or thinking it would be possible that would happen in the show, but most of the people I do interview are not fortunate enough to do the distance and say, I'm going to do it again. I'm going to do it again. And you now have seen that your 10th book will probably outsell your 9.
Yeah,
So
that's true.
most authors are believing that there's this professional author, and they're not. They're just becoming an author. And can you imagine the first time you went on stage, you said, "This is the best performance I'm ever going to do on stage. This is my first one. It's my best
Oh
one."
my goodness. Yeah. No. No.
So that's my
No.
point. My point
Yeah.
is, if you're going to author a book, there's two things you're probably missing. One is that you probably got to do a couple more to get your groove on, and number two, you probably got to do a good 1,000 hours of marketing that book just to give it some love. I mean, there's just not enough love in the book you gave the first one too. And
True.
there's
True.
this myth that, golly gee, I'm writing a book. There's 8 billion people. If only 1% buy it, I'm in good. Well, you got to let those 1% know.
Exactly. Exactly. And that definitely takes some effort for sure.
Yeah,
For
I say
sure.
it takes 99 times more effort to market your book than it is to write it. That's what I say. And I found that those that take that advice or believe that, they usually do more books.
Yeah, that's exactly true.
Well, this is beautiful because, quite frankly, I didn't know that you had 6 books, so I get to enjoy some more books from you. And
Okay.
and secondly, it's gold nuggets. It's gold nuggets.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
funny
Yes.
that you buy a book for $20, Cicone, $20.
Hmm.
The person who wrote that book, they might be charging 5,000 for a keynote, or 10,000,
Right.
and you're getting the gold of that presentation, but beyond the goal, because there's only so much time you can be on stage. This is like 2 stages or 3 stages of content.
Right. Right. That's exactly true.
Well, what else would you like to talk about, Sakoni? We talked about your fatherhood. We talked about your, well, we didn't talk a lot about your fatherhood. What makes you what advice can you give to fathers? Father's Day was recently, that you think would help fathers have a better experience.
Whew. I would say that, and I guess the best explanation when it comes to fatherhood is you become the foundation. And most buildings that you see, you don't see the foundation. It's not put on display. It's not even thought about, actually, honestly, unless the building is falling. If it's crumbling, if it's the leaning tower of Pisa, then you be like, hey, the foundation is messed up. And fathers, they become the foundation of the family. They become the structure and the strength. And again, there's not a whole lot of fanfare after the foundation is poured and the building is erected. In fact, no one even mentions it. So, I mean, in fact, the reality is at times it can be a thankless existence, but you still have to show up and you still have to be that strength and that foundation. So I would encourage anyone who is a father or who aspires to be a father to just understand that there are going to be times when, in fact, when you're not recognized, when you're not appreciated, but don't let that stop you from showing up. If anything, and I know, in fact, we can change that because I know that there is a culture, but we have to, the only way that you can change something like that is that you have to consistently be there and show up. So I would just encourage all of the fathers, everybody who's listening, tuning in, to celebrate yourself. I've been actually going to therapy, and one of the things that my therapist talks about is choosing me, choosing myself. And that doesn't mean that you just say forget everybody else, but it means that you take the time out to focus on you and well, what it is you want. And oftentimes, fathers, we are as we should. We're doing, in fact, what's best for the well-being of the family, but we also need to make sure that our well-being is for the well-being of the family. So there are times when we have to, in fact, disconnect ourselves or unplug or go somewhere and recharge so that we can come back and we can still be that foundation that's needed. So, yeah.
Did you say you're going through therapy right now?
Yes, I am.
And what are you working on?
I'm working on me. I'm working on choosing me, which again has been so foreign to me because most of my life I've served.
Hmm.
I've served other people. I've been there for my mom, in fact, my sister, of course, my wife and my kids, and my I don't say my entire existence, but most of my young adult and adult life is how can I make things better? And I even told my coach, Dr. West, I said, if I'm not here to help, then why am I here? I have surrounded my identity with my ability to help. But in the process of doing that, I have lost the 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 foresight or the insight to help myself.
Mm.
And so learning to do that. And it's a funny thing about, and I don't want to use the term, but I guess it's the best thing to come to mind, reprogramming yourself. Because oftentimes there's just a default. Something happens and you just, like you just react. But in order for you to change that reaction to a response, there's a period of time where you have to not do anything and you have to say, okay, look, this is what happened. This is what I would normally do, but I don't want to do that anymore. This is what I want to do. So there's a time where it seems like you are somewhat, in fact, disconnected from the situation. But in fact, what's happening is that you are changing your muscle memory because it used to be this happens, I do this happens, I do that, this happens, I do that. But then it's like, okay, in fact, this happened, but I don't want to react like that. I want to respond like this. So I have to stop what I'm doing. Okay, I'm not doing that. I'm going to do this. And until the new response becomes the reaction, there's a, there's a time period, that you have to go through in that reprogramming. And so for me, having to choose myself because my initial reaction was, is everybody else okay? How can I help them? What can I do for them? How can I show up for them? How can I fix it for them? Where it's like, okay, I need to kind of pull back on that, allow them a chance to come up with their own problem solving techniques. But also, I need to figure out what I need to do, in fact, what's best and what's going to help me be the best version of myself. Because honestly, people are watching us. And if they see us work ourselves to death for other people and never take time for ourselves, guess what? They're going to do the same thing. And then we'll get mad at them. Why don't you take some time? So why don't you, take a vacation? Hey, why don't you unplug or, like disconnect for a while? Because you're always doing this, doing that, not realizing that that's what we've done and that's what we've showed them. So we have to also show them, okay, you need to take care of you. You need to pull back. Like you need to unplug. Like you need to do some self-care, some self-therapy, some R&R in order for you to be your best version of yourself when when the time comes.
I know a possible title for your seventh book, sir.
Okay. And what's that?
Therapy.
Therapy. Okay. Well,
Well, it's pretty
I'm
cool.
actually working on my seventh one, in fact, which is a follow-up to this one,
Uh-huh.
to Heal, and it is literally called Heal: Help Elevate and Learn: A Guide to Maturing Your Inner Adult. So
Nice.
after the inner child is healed, the inner adult has to be mature. So that may be book number 8.
Hey.
Yeah,
All right. Well,
they're me.
let's do a little for the audience that is in pain, doesn't have their love language being addressed, and they wanna have that all kind of heal. Do you want to? Is there like a 2 or 3 minute version you could do of this?
Sure, sure.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. I want you to think about your childhood. What was your childhood nickname? Mine was Coney. When my mother didn't want to say my full name, she would just say Coney. So I gave my inner child the nickname of Coney. And Kona is probably around 8 years old, 8 or 9 years old. He's not old enough to be able to do anything as far as like help, but he is old enough to realize and understand that there are challenges that are facing a single mother. He's in a place and in a position to where he needs the insight and the help in order for him to be able to actually make a difference in the life of his mother. So I want you to think of yours. I want you to think of that age where you felt helpless, but you knew enough about what you were doing or what was going on to want to make a difference. Okay. Now that you pictured yourself at that age, now that you've seen yourself in that moment, I want you to speak kindly to that child. to actually come alongside of them and just help them to understand that a lot of stuff they're taking on is not really their responsibility. I know they see what's going on and they want to help and they care about the people that are around them, but it's not your responsibility. And I've never had anybody actually tell me that until I went to therapy. I've never had anybody just really just drive home that point that even as an 8-year old boy, I wasn't responsible for paying bills or fixing the leaky faucet or rehanging, in fact, the door hinge. It wasn't my responsibility, but I took it as mine. So as I spoke to my own inner child, I want you to speak to yours. And I don't know what type of child you had. I don't know what you went through, what you endured. Some people went through horrific childhoods. I mean, just stuff that nightmares are made of: physical abuse, mental abuse, sexual abuse, verbal abuse. I mean, just things that are beyond comprehension. And I tell people this all the time on my podcast. What happened to you may not have been your fault, but it's your responsibility. And what I mean by that is the hurt, the pain, the trauma, the wounds that were caused to you wasn't your fault, but healing from them is your responsibility. Several weeks ago, a tree fell on the house behind ours in the street that's behind our house. And I use that as an object lesson because, in fact, the tree fell on the house and damaged the roof. Who was responsible for the roof being fixed? Not the tree. The tree couldn't do anything. And whether or not, in fact, the house was being rented or it was owned, it was the homeowner's responsibility to fix the roof. What happened to the roof wasn't the homeowner's fault, but it was their responsibility if they wanted the house to retain value. And even for us, we have to be willing to put in the work to heal ourselves. Sometimes that means forgiving somebody who may be dead and gone. And forgiveness, and I know you've heard this time and time again. If you're like me, you've heard this time and time again. Forgiveness is not for the other person, it's for you because it frees you up. It lets you out of the prison of hate. It lets you out of the prison of just holding somebody hostage. I even did a message several years ago entitled Holding Hurt Hostage. You don't want to let the hurt go because if I let it go, then what am I going to have? Guess what? Joy, peace. You have a better life. But no, sometimes we're so familiar with the pain and so familiar with the hurt that we don't want to let it go. We have to let hurt go so love can come in. So forgiveness can come in. So joy can come in. So we can live a life that we deserve. We don't need to imprison somebody else and ourselves in our pain. We need to let them go and let us go so we can live the life that we've been called to live. So when you think about your inner child and your situation, what you've gone through, think about the thing that brings you the most pain. Find out what it is around it. It could be just an economic situation. You could just grew up dirt poor, talked about, bullied because of that. That could have been your trauma. You could have grown up as an outsider. You could have grown up and your parents not being married. And, in fact, you were, considered the redhead stepchild or the black sheep of the family. There's so many things that we all have gone through. But whatever causes us pain, we have to be willing to let that pain go. And in doing so, we give space and room for us to be able to grow. And so, without going any further, that's what I have for us to do. Just to think of that inner child, think of that little child, that frightened, alone, scared, confused child that has gone through unimaginable horrors and pain, but release them, see about them, check on them. And once you've made peace with that inner child, you'll find out you'll laugh more, you'll be more optimistic, you'll be honestly better to be around. People will love it. You'll be more attractive because you have that childlike faith and that childlike existence. So that's all I have for now. I'm telling you, I wish I could go more into it, but
That's what the books are for, brother. And that's what
exact.
and
There
that's
you
what
go.
going to see and that's what's going to see you speak. Because this bit that you gave, this bit was my favorite part of the interview.
Okay.
By
Okay.
far, by far. I mean, honestly, I could say preach, I could say beautiful, I could say powerful, I could say transformational, and all those would be accurate words. And you have me thinking about some things that there's no such thing as a childhood without trauma because
Mm,
you invent pain. Like somebody can actually say, "My pain is my dad doesn't spend time with me," even though,
yeah.
and he gives you everything, or his mom gives everything, or what you know, and they don't know what it is to have so much less that they're burdened with this facade. You know,
Exactly.
yes.
Exactly.
So, like, I made sure that my son knew I loved him, but not just I love him and that I hug him, but the reason why. Like, it,
Right.
it's so important to say, I am proud of you because, and I've heard that some pushback, like, don't say you're proud. There's all kinds of different ways, but my son knows I love him,
Right.
and there's no doubt about it. But that was something that my dad's family did not do, and so it's invented trauma, and the trauma is not it's not real. It's just too real for you to hold on to and not let it be replaced with love.
Right. That part. That part. And one of the biggest challenges is loving ourselves.
Mm.
That's the biggest one. If you can ever get that down pat, everything. I tell people all the time, love yourself and let the world catch up. Just let them catch up. Don't wait for them to co-sign your existence, but just love yourself because you are significant.
Well, my doctorate was about the 21 things you get out of smiling, the science of smiles. And it was, and you said more attractive, and it's true. I mean, if you're happier, you are causing the attraction of people to say, I want to be happy because I'm with you.
Right.
But I think there is a lot to be said for that comment you just made of start with loving yourself. And the degree in which you love yourself is the degree in which you can love others.
That's true. That's true. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. I live by that as well.
Yes, sir. Well, Cicone, this has been a gorgeous conversation. I never stop the conversation. It can go as long as it wants, but for me, I feel like we've covered a lot of good stuff.
Yes, sir. We have. We have.
So, just for the listeners, if you haven't heard the whole thing, the power of authorship, the power of overcoming stuttering to confidence and being a leader, the power of knowing to be a foundational person in your family,
Mm.
and not needing to be the spotlight, but that you're the person everyone can count on, and you're there when you're supposed to be. And then I love the inner child, and I love the I think that's the first time I've ever heard it put so succinctly. Your love language is the absence of what you had when you were a child. So
Yeah.
what a beautiful conversation.
Yeah.
I am looking forward to reading your new book, and I'm looking forward to reading your seventh and eighth, especially that therapy.
Jeremy. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
All right. Well, I have some questions for you. And before I ask those questions, how can people reach you? How can they follow and celebrate you?
Well, the easiest way to reach me is to I can be found on all social medias under Cicone Prince. That's Instagram, that's Facebook, that's LinkedIn, that's YouTube, and TikTok, uh, which is uh, which is just my name. And you can reach out to me there. You can DM me. You can follow me. In fact, you can check out my podcast, in fact, which is on my website, which is ciconeprince.com. And if you go there, in fact, you'll see a copy of this book. And if you click on that, what you'll do, it will take you to a page where you can actually look at and listen to all of my previous podcasts. They're on my YouTube channel, but if you go to my website, they're all there on one page. They're also on Spotify and also iHeartRadio.
Beautiful. You make it too easy for everybody. I mean, I don't know if you didn't like me back in the day, but you said the easiest way to reach me is to drive down to LA, Lower Alabama, and get MapQuest. Okay. That was a lot of work for me, Saccone.
Yeah, I know, I know.
All right, you ready for the five rapid fire questions?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, just a reminder if you have a tie, you can say the tie. It's just about moving through the questions. Okay, here we go.
Gotcha, gotcha.
A book that changed your life,
The Bible.
and let's call it a book from a person on stage that you would like to give a shout out to.
Uh, Driven Success by April Franks.
That is a good one.
Yeah.
A movie that inspires you.
The Matrix.
Song that gets you going.
Uh, it's the song that I come out to and I can think of it. Nothing Can Stop Me. I'm All the Way Up.
Who does that one?
It's by I know it's I know it's a DJ Khaled production,
Okay.
and I want to say it's goodness, I can't believe I'm drawing a
Well,
blank.
here's the good news. It's
Yeah,
live on Facebook. We can put a linky link in this in the statement, and people can hear it. Okay.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, I just don't want to. I don't want to let it slide. If there's an artist and there's a song that gets you going, someone's also going to enjoy it too. So we want to give a little shout out to them. All
Yeah,
right.
I would say get the radio version because the the other version has a lot of curse words in it.
Very good. Okay. So who's your hero?
I honestly have to say, in fact, my hero is James Hawkins, a good friend of mine, a brother, in fact, that I met in Atlanta. Um, and he's been instrumental. A, a lot of the reason that I am, in fact, the person I am today is because of what God taught me through him. So, yeah, that would be him.
Who would you like to meet you haven't met?
I'm sorry,
Who would you like to meet that you haven't met?
President Obama.
That's a good one. When you get that invitation, can I go with you?
Hey, you can be security. One of the things in your ears and talking to your wrist.
Yeah, and I'll have the camera ready for that social proof shot we need, right?
There you go. There you go.
And what's a quote you live by?
To whom much is given, much is required.
Amen. Cicone
Amen.
Prince, it was a pleasure not only having you on the show, but you're a friend. You're someone I respect a lot. And I put you on the show because I picked 365 people that are moving this world in the right direction. You are definitely one of them. So thank you, sir.
Well, thank you for all the work that you do. And again, my hat's off to you and your team because it's one thing for us to like celebrate ourselves, but it's another thing for us to make space to celebrate other people. And doing that, you will never lack for an audience and you will never lack for somebody to grace this stage. And so again, I want you to know publicly and personally that I appreciate everything that you're doing to again help move the world forward. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll see you on the Authothon and many more events because it's interesting when someone's a priority. All of a sudden, you have time.
Yes, sir. That's it. That's it.
All right. Well, peace. Enjoy your day. Keep smiling and follow this guy. He's a good guy to follow, and he'll get you in a better direction. All right.
All right.
Be blessed.